On the one hand, it's kind of embarrassing. You're like, really? You're gonna have a streamer on who just kind of only learned in October? But he is an extremely sharp guy. And he makes a lot of the arguments that you see being made.
Oh, holy sh! What the f? Did I just get a compliment from Ryan Grimm? Oh no, this debate might have went more brutally than I thought then. Ooh, I feel like I did really well. Oh no. Oh, this debate must have been so much more brutal than I remember. Holy sh! But she's giving me props on it. Oh no.
He's able to roll them out very effectively. There was nothing you guys asked him about that he wasn't ready with an answer, that he hadn't thought through, that he wasn't.
That is true. What are your thoughts on Breaking Point's releasing their circle jerk session before the debate is released? I don't know. I haven't even watched it yet. I saw it was posted to the subreddit, but I'm curious what they had to say about that one.
So as we just mentioned, Ryan and Emily hosted kind of a major debate yesterday between streamer Destiny, real name Stephen Banal.
Is this a real bit? Is this? Wait, what? Is that an actual picture of me? What? Wait, what? Where? What is that f***ing picture? What is happening here? Holy shit. Okay. Well. Damn, they gave me the red spotlight. They gave him the angelic angel glow. Bro, how am I supposed to compete with that? They've got this dude lit up by God. And I'm over here rocking the f***ing Darth Maul color scheme. Holy shit. I'm surprised they didn't give me a red lightsaber. Jesus Christ.
And Omar Baddar, who is a fantastic expert on Middle East and Israel-Palestine specifically. I got to watch the whole rough cut last night.
Fantastic expert. Oh, I think he actually might be technically a PhD too, because he did a thesis, right? Or at least a master's.
Well, kudos to both of you, because it's not easy. It's
not easy what? Is she going to say it's not easy moderating debates, or is she going to say it's not easy being in the room with such an airheaded f***ing retard like this Destiny guy? What's she going to do?
Cut last night. First of all, kudos to both of you, because it's not easy. It's almost harder when you're a duo. Saagar and I have experience to know when to jump in, how to manage it. It's a difficult balance to keep things on the rails, but also to make sure that they're able to engage with each other. I thought you guys both did a fantastic job with that. Before, we've got a couple of like little highlight clips that we want to share with the audience. But before I do that, I mean, what was your kind of like, what was the vibe? What was your sense of how this all went?
Yeah. Vibes were good. Vibes were exactly what you would expect from that conversation. Now, I hadn't watched previously. They did a debate. I didn't know that before we had booked them. Yeah, so we kind of had to go back and figure out what their dynamic was. They had met before, and then they'd continued to exchange these barbs online, nasty stuff. Like
all this
really
was new to us. We were not actually trying to do a round two.
Keep yourself out.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't intend a grudge match. It just kind of,
Yeah, but we also like wanted to make sure that it didn't go down a rabbit hole of just personal, because you know the YouTube beef sometimes it's like it's insufferable. Sometimes you're just like, well, you said this on this stream on this day, so we wanted to make sure that didn't happen, and I think that worked.
Yeah, it actually was pretty substantive. Because it's like, on the one hand, it's kind of embarrassing. You're like, really? You're gonna have a streamer on who just kind of only learned in October? It's like like he says, like, I learned in October about this issue. I didn't care about it before. But he is an extremely sharp guy, and he makes a lot of the arguments that you see being made.
Oh, holy shit! What the fuck? Did I just get a compliment from Ryan Grimm? Oh no, this debate might have went more brutally than I thought then. Ooh, I feel like I did really well. I feel like I knew every history point that Omar tried to bring up. I had all of it. I feel like I have this timeline of this conflict and all the little pieces like so well in my head. And then the narratives and the stories around all of it. Oof.
Extremely sharp guy. And he makes a lot of the arguments that you see being made from people in his camp.
But, oh no. We can't let that stand. Krystal, take me down a peg.
Yeah.
And he makes them very effectively.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think it's useful to see how those can and can't be, combated, counteracted. And I think we also brought it to a little bit of a higher level where we ask questions about kind of broader issues like racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, like root causes and root solutions to the conflict, which you can't really take those down a rabbit hole and kind of get distracted. And I thought that was the most enlightening part.
The only other thing I would add to that is the value of the way Destiny approaches it is he says things that people on his side think, but probably would just tiptoe around and wouldn't actually
That's good.
just
At least he's honest and actually gets out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Omar can respond to that instead of like, tiptoeing around it.
Right.
It's useful to have the actual position laid out.
Right.
Because when you get into I didn't say that. It's like, yeah, but you freaking mean it. We all know what you mean to say.
Right.
So that is helpful when you actually, say it.
Just say it.
Just say that they're using cookies to make rockets,
Yes.
for example, as one thing that came in the debate.
That's a good one.
In any case, the first clip we have for you is an exchange about safe zones in the context of if you're a Palestinian in Gaza, what do? Let's take a listen to how that went down.
Look, they've destroyed 80% of the buildings.
No, they haven't.
They've
That's
displaced.
bullshit. That number is not true.
They've displaced 90% of the population. Can you name any other conflict in which you've displaced 90% of the civilian population?
No, because usually they just destroyed them. Do you think in Dresden they told the civilians to flee? Do you think in the Tokyo firebombing they told the civilians to leave?
They technically did try to, but nobody left. That's why there's a massive death toll for these places.
For Nagasaki and Hiroshima, did we tell the civilians to leave? Can you acknowledge? Hold on.
Yeah.
Can you acknowledge that what you just said was incredibly stupid? That they don't tell civilians to leave first. Normally, they just kill them.
Yeah.
Can you acknowledge that?
because we knew.
No. I need to hear an acknowledgement.
Because he thinks that's such a clever line. Let me explain something to you.
He's not going to acknowledge it.
I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to acknowledge it. Yes, they told civilians to leave, and then they dropped massive 2,000 bombs on the safe zones that they told the civilians to flee to.
There was one safe zone, the beach or whatever, and they haven't bombed it.
There have been countless incidents of them dropping. Now you're just lying.
I'm not. I looked it up. We can look up all the data on all the safe zones. There's 4 hours of roads that they make safe per day where they guarantee travel.
There's a New York Times
beach that they have not attacked yet.
There's a New York Times investigation and there's an NBC investigation. Both of them document the fact that Israel is bombing safe zones where they tell civilians to flee.
And Israel admitted this. Israel admitted this.
Hold on.
Israel admitted at CNN that intelligence indication that these places were safe houses for commanders of the Rafah Brigade of the Hamas terror organization. This was back in December about bombing areas that were supposed to be evacuation routes.
Evacuation routes are not safe zones. There's been one official declared
Shouldn't
safe zone.
Shouldn't it be safe?
Shouldn't Hamas not operate from there? I mean, we're talking again.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
Okay.
I always like the face go down. Oh shit. Yeah, shouldn't they be safe? Wouldn't that be something if there were only civilians there?
Shouldn't Hamas not operate from there? I mean, we're talking again.
That's a good question.
Okay, so
Spirited, but good. You
the
guys are
safe zone
moderating.
they're talking about,
Yeah.
Al Mawasi, is what he I think is referring to.
That is
there,
correct.
And
Thank
I want to
you.
get your reaction.
Actually, I was gonna say I asked him if that's what he was referring to. I wrote it down on a piece of paper because we had it fact checked, and I handed it over to him. And he said yes.
Yes, that's it. Al Mawasi. So we covered when they at first were like, go to Al Mawasi. There's nothing there. There's no infrastructure. There's not sufficient sanitation, water, food, etc. The idea that millions of Palestinians could shelter in this area is preposterous. But he's kind of getting this technicality of this is the official safe zone.
Hold on. We're adding this. I'm taking this more seriously, okay? We're going to take these more seriously. I need to, and I have to. Debate pervertry. I need names for all of these. We're going to call this the let's not get in the weeds strategy, okay? When the opponent is lacking, we'll say interlocutor is nicer. When the opposition is lacking a thorough understanding of what's being said, they will oftentimes attempt to obfuscate away from crucial details by claiming that they don't want to get into the weeds or don't want to get into technicalities like that. Not even close. Even though these particular technicalities might be essential to justifying or attacking a particular argument. Okay. This has got to be we'll call this the let's not get in the weeds strategy. It's so frustrating that you can be having an argument on law. The lazy gardener. I love that. We're going to call it that one. The lazy gardener. Yes.
So no. Safe routes, evacuation routes, that doesn't count. I'm talking about specifically this one safe zone.
Yeah. Yeah. It matters.
And I think why it's useful for people to see this is this was the most kind of bitchy, nasty back and forth, whereas I think everything else was a little bit calmer and more reasoned might not be the word, but more reasoned. Like that
the cookies were kind of bitchy.
It was. I mean,
you were kind of bitchy,
bad.
right?
There was other bitchiness, which I don't mind, right? But overall,
I thought this was the height of it.
This was one of the more like tense, and sort of messy.
But honestly, it wasn't that bad. I've seen it, 10 times worse. And that is more, a shout out to your guys' moderation. How was it with Omar as well? Like in terms of the challenge.
Explain why it matters for people who don't know. Well, I mean, like if you're gonna say that, like, well, this is an officially designated safe zone and then bomb it, that's, shitty in a lot of different ways. But if you say, like, all of we're going to be doing heavy combat operations in the north, you should flee to the south. I mean, you can't just say we're not going to attack the entirety of the south, and all of Hamas just moves to the south, and now you can't. Well, oh shit, I guess you got us. Like, 2 weeks to move south. Wow, no more Hamas in the north. Well, us, I guess. Yeah, you're not going to mark off and half the theater as a safe zone. So they designated one beach where they are correct. There's not much infrastructure there. The idea being that you can't hide there, you can't tunnel there, you can't do anything. And that was the one like officially super safe zone, like officially declared we will never attack this place. Now we can move on to the next thing. Now, if you want to argue whether or not that's right or that's wrong, or whether there should be more safe spaces or whatever, that's fine. You can make that argument. But that's a separate argument than saying Israel said these places would be safe, and then once they herded all the civilians into there, they bombed and killed them all after they got them like cattle into a corner. Like, no, what?
Questions. Did you throw it to him more?
Why don't people ever mention Gaza's ocean access when people talk about their food supplies? Is fishing not an option? Two things. One major and one very major. One major problem is that the shores off of Gaza, I believe, are pretty shallow. You can't like sail like a full-on ship up to there. And then a second major thing is that there's a blockade. Israel won't allow ships to come in through there. So if you do, the NDF, the INF, the Israeli Naval Forces, is that a real thing? INF. Oh, please let this be a real thing. Israeli Naval Forces. It's got to be. Come on. Israeli Navy. What are they called? Just be the INF. The Israeli Sea Corps. What? Never mind. Cringe.
Destiny throwing things to him. How was it handling that?
Destiny was actually, I thought, respectful of Omar's time in a way that I was worried he might not be. Like when we would come in and be like, look, enough. Let him respond. He would actually let him respond.
Yeah.
Omar was very good at not taking the bait. He called him effing stupid.
Yeah, that's right.
At another time, he said, "I think you're probably more anti-Semitic than we even know," or something just a nasty personal attack.
Well, that wasn't nasty. I'm pretty sure. Didn't they ask me? I feel like they asked me or they brought it up. They were like, "Do you think he's anti-Semitic?" Or something like that. People accuse me of being racist, but who cares, man? People have hated Jews throughout all human history. If you want to hate them, then hate them. Okay, it's your God-given right. We're in the goddamn U.S. of A. Okay.
Attack that it was completely baseless.
Okay.
And you didn't call him stupid. No, you called the point stupid. Oh, maybe. I don't even remember. You said his argument was fucking stupid. I mean, it's the same thing in essence.
He didn't. Just a nasty personal attack that it was completely baseless.
Okay.
And he didn't really take the bait, and because I think he understood that Destiny was going to try to Destiny base ourselves with this stuff.
Yes.
Mr. Bertucci's.
Kyle and I interviewed Omar shortly after his last debate with Destiny, and a debate that he found to be extremely frustrating. And he's not a YouTuber like we are. right? He didn't know who Destiny was, and he hadn't consumed his content. So he didn't really, when he agreed to the debate, I think he didn't initially, like the first one, really know what he was getting. And so I think between then and this one, I think he was able to develop better strategies for handling some of the tactics that were thrown out. I mean, Destiny is like, obviously he has assimilated a large amount of information about this conflict in a very short period of time, a large amount of propaganda talking points, in my opinion, in a very short period of time.
Oh, even she has to give me props. Oh, no. Oh, this debate must have been so much more brutal than I remember. Holy shit. If even she's giving me props on it. Oh, no.
He's able to roll them out very effectively. There was nothing you guys asked him about that he wasn't ready with an answer, that he hadn't thought through, that he wasn't.
That is true. My brain is so maximized on the whole timeline, start to finish of this conflict. That is absolutely true. I do know it all.
There was nothing you guys asked him about that he wasn't ready with an answer, that he hadn't thought through, that he wasn't able to do. And I mean, his whole thing and why he's popular and successful, he's a debate bro. So he's good at this. And so it seemed to me like Omar was able to kind of come up with some better strategies than the first time.
Jesus, why? This sounds like you're listening to like some boxer getting like the shit beat out of him. It's like, well, how did he deal with this time? Well, last time it was really brutal. This time, he's trying to keep his distance a bit. He's trying to watch for that jab. He's developed some strat. My God.
Me, like Omar was able.
I almost feel like you're throwing Omar under the bus here.
Able to kind of come up with some better strategies than the first time that he met up with Destiny that created the initial, whatever YouTube beef situation.
I thought Omar was good often at kind of meta identifying what Destiny was doing.
Yes.
Saying like, okay, in this moment, what you are doing is trying to get me to.
Again, not a single factual disagreement. Well, to be fair, they're not like going over everything that was said, right? I guess.
Chase this.
Right.
So that you can avoid answering this.
Yeah, because he would say, okay, way to raise a totally irrelevant rabbit hole point that's going to distract me in this direction, but I'm going to focus on, yes, that's it. That he did do a good job.
Because otherwise, Destiny will say, well, you're avoiding answering at this point. It's like, well, the reason I'm avoiding is because it's just a distraction.
Well, we have a second list here that we can play about the March of Return. This was another interesting moment that we wanted to highlight for everybody. Let's take a listen. We'll get the reaction on the other side.
Towards the end of the Great March of Return, there were people that were throwing stones, that were sending over incendiary balloons, that were causing fires to spread on the other side of the fence.
Oh yeah, they keep characterizing this. It's like, oh, it was a completely peaceful event. That's not true. Why do you say that?
All of this is documented even by the UN, and that was when the majority of the firing from the Israeli police happened. If you want to say that they shouldn't be shooting at people who were close to the fence because you don't like that policy or whatever, that's fine. But characterizing that as just open firing into a bunch of innocent people that are standing there with the goal of just maiming people for no reason is the most unbelievable retelling of what happened.
Oh, because Ryan asked me a question about it, and I didn't agree with his framing, so I reframed that March of Return because he was completely wrong about it.
Towards the end of that event.
It's exactly what happened, actually.
Yeah, that's right. Back away. Yeah, there were a few times where he went to that laptop looking for something, and he didn't find the answers he was looking for, so he didn't bring it up again. I remember that. We got into a huge argument over, what did we get into an argument about? This is it's comical. This is a sticking point. We went back and forth on this for a minute, and he was like, if you don't have weapons on you, then you're unarmed, and you can't be killed. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Being unarmed and being a military personnel or a soldier without a gun, that's not the same thing. You think you can just drop your gun and run away and the enemy military can't shoot you anymore? What does that even mean? Oh, does that come up here? Okay.
Characterize it, just get a even more complete picture. Israeli policy is people in Gaza have no right to go in and out of the cage that they've been placed into. They're under complete siege. Their economy is in shambles because Israel does not allow them to trade with the outside world. They can't have an airport because Israel doesn't feel like they are entitled to an airport.
Why?
Can't have a seaport. When you look at the rates of unemployment, over 50% in Gaza at the time. And if those people who are trapped in this cage come a little too close to the border, then we open fire at them and kill them, even when they're unarmed, because that's border policy.
It's more than 6,000, according to the UN, quote unquote, more than 6,000 unarmed demonstrators were shot by military snipers week after week at the protest sites by the separation fence.
There's no denying that, yes, some people try to open up and some people send incendiary balloons over the border and so on. But by and large, when you look at the cases, human rights organizations organizations have been clear about the fact that people were targeted when they posed absolutely no threat to Israeli soldiers. So Israeli soldiers opened fire on people and targeted specifically medics and journalists and children and people who are disabled in wheelchairs.
There's a very clever game that's being played when we say pose no threat to Israeli soldiers. There was one UN report that came out that analyzed it, that claimed that every single shooting except for one was unjustified. But the way that they got that is they didn't analyze that as an armed conflict. They analyzed that as a policing event. And when you analyze things internationally as a policing event, typically police are...
So here's what I'm curious about, okay? Like the 50-page write-up for this probably took me an hour to read. How does nobody know any of these talking points? How does not like you can clearly neither of them have read this singular report. It might be less than 50 pages. I don't know. We can probably find it. I don't know if I have it saved somewhere. How have you not read this report before? Are you just hoping that like I'm not familiar with anything that we're talking about, and you can just like say some random shit and be like, oh,
conflict? They analyze that as a policing event. And when you analyze things internationally as a policing event, typically police aren't allowed to shoot or kill anybody unless they pose a direct threat to the individual.
Yeah. Why would it be analyzed as an armed conflict if one side wasn't armed?
Because Hamas was present.
But they weren't shooting.
It doesn't matter if they were shooting. If you've got an enemy military that is present amongst people that are performing actions that are
there was not a military.
Hamas is considered the oppositional force, and if you've got people that are participating,
and if you don't have guns at the time,
doesn't matter if you have guns or not.
Of course,
guns
it does.
have nothing to do with being
international humanitarian law is
force.
absolutely clear about the fact that a situation you can only kill combatants if they're in combat and they're armed.
What? Like, imagine so confidently just saying that, well, you can only kill a combatant if they're in combat and if they're armed. What are you talking about? What he actually just set out was this is actually how civilians can lose civilian status, is if they join the enemy combatants and they take part in active hostilities, which is what happened in the Great March of Return, by the way.
You can't find somebody.
That is absolutely not true. You do not become hors de combat. You do not all of a sudden gain the protections of a civilian if you're an enemy combatant without a gun. That is absolutely true.
If you happen to go home, of course you do.
He goes to his laptop to search for this for like 4 minutes and then never brings it up again. But
you should familiarize yourself with international humanitarian law.
Enemy combatant. Google IHL hors de combat.
Let's do that.
That is absolutely
just to go back to a point that you made earlier about sort of.
Wait, hold on. Just to be clear, I just want to so you're saying that like if there's a military and you're fighting the enemy and you guys are going to lose, if you just drop your guns, you can just like run back and nobody can shoot at you?
If you drop your guns and raise your arms, you can't be shot anymore.
He tried. You see, he tried a tricky one there. Oh, hold on. You see, he tried the tricky. He tried the tricky there. No.
Drop your guns. You can just like run back and nobody can shoot at you.
If you drop your guns and raise your arms, you can't be shot anymore.
No, that's surrendering. That's different than running away. You can't drop your guns and just run away, and you can't get shot because you have no firearm.
Okay, that exchange made me a little insane. Ryan, what's your reaction after the fact?
Wow. And I thought the whole March of Return conversation was interesting from beginning to end because he just kind of mentioned the March of Return as something that as an example of something that Hamas had done that had kind of triggered Israel to like attack it. And Omar and I pointed out it was a civil society-led nonviolent action.
Right.
And that later led into, I thought, the most useful conversation, which was that Hamas was pressured by the nonviolent.
Oh, I feel like I buried them in this part because they completely dropped all of this because they brought up the shootings too, and I think I mentioned at one point where it's like it's very interesting, very curious, and when you look at the shootings that the UN documents, you said they were shooting to a crowd. Notice how all of them are within like 100 meters. And then I think I said something like, do you think their sniper rifles just couldn't shoot that far? And I think Ryan was like, well, maybe there's not good shooters. I was like, okay, well, all right, Chief. All right, I see. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice attempt there. Okay.
Which was that, Hamas was pressured by the nonviolent civil society-led March of Return into eventually supporting it.
I don't understand your argument. You consider the 2018 March of Return a war or an armed conflict. Can you shoot soldiers from another territory that isn't engaged in war? The Great March of Return, the point of it was to return to Israel. So yeah, when you're doing something and then you're approaching the 100-meter restricted area from the fence, and then some people were trying to cut through. I think there was one bomb that got placed there with people coming up to it where it's where you're not supposed to like enter this zone. It's a demilitarized or whatever the fuck zone. Yeah, you're gonna get shot. If you don't like that policy, that's fine. But the characterization of just shooting into a crowd of like innocent protesters that were just all being shot and maimed for no reason is ridiculous. So then your argument is everyone there wasn't a civilian. It doesn't matter if it was Hamas. If Hamas is there operating in that group and there are other people there that are working alongside that are there ostensibly for the same reason that Hamas is, then you kind of all can become like participating in hostilities with Hamas. That's basically how it works. Yeah. If the goal is to like breach the fence or break the wall. But again, it's not like they were just shooting out into the crowd of people. It was only people that had come within 100 meters of that perimeter fence. It was just random people they were shooting at. What percent of the march was peaceful in your opinion? Well, this March of Return, I think this took place over like a year or something. It was a lot of marches, like a lot of different days. Probably the vast majority of it was peaceful, I think. It only got like pretty bad, I think, towards the end is when Hamas started to jump onto it a lot.
Which was that, Hamas was pressured by the nonviolent civil society-led March of Return into eventually supporting it. They didn't want to because it takes away from their argument, which is that only armed resistance is appropriate against Israel. And it made our point that the way to dismantle the ideology of Hamas is through nonviolence, is through peace, is through reaching a deal with the Palestinians. It is the violence by the Israelis toward the Palestinians that actually supports the ideology of Hamas. And that I thought was the most interesting part of the debate, to tackle that broader subject.
Because that was really important. I thought that you brought up a couple of times, Ryan, that if you look at Hamas popularity, it plummets when there's an actual possibility of negotiated peace. And when there's not, and when it feels to Palestinians like my only chance is armed.
I'm not watching the full debate. It's fucking paywalled, you retards.
Like nothing else is working. We do the Great March of Return. It's overwhelmingly nonviolent, and we get snipers firing at us. Like, what the hell are we supposed to do here?
Like, that's not true. That characterization is just wrong. Is she aware that she's lying?
It's overwhelmingly nonviolent, and we get snipers firing at us. Like, what the hell are we supposed to do here? That's when support, predictably, and also when, your mom and your brother and your sister are being slaughtered, guess what? That's probably going to create a lot more commitment to terrorism.
And Destiny understands that on the other side, because he's very quick to say, look, the reason Israelis want to genocide the Palestinians is because of the Second Intifada and the suicide bombings. Well, why doesn't it work the other way?
That's my argument. Oh, I don't care. Why is he that's my argument. I'm saying you can't give one justification to the other side and not look at the other side.
Because of the Second Intifada and the suicide bombings. Well, why doesn't it work the other way? Of course it does.
I also thought that exchange, though, was very illustrative of a technique that he...
Wait, is that what he was saying? Was he saying? Oh, okay, good.
Right. And Destiny understands that on the other side, because he's very quick to say, look, the reason Israelis want to genocide the Palestinians is because of the Second Intifada and the suicide bombings. Well, why doesn't it work the other way? Of course it does.
I also thought that...
Wait, I can't tell. Wait, I actually can't tell. Is he saying that whole thing was my point, or was he giving his counter to my point at the end? Wait, now I can't tell. Chatters are wrong? Yeah, wait, I can't tell if he's giving my point or if he's like countering what he says I just said.
Plummets when there's an actual possibility of negotiated peace. And when there's not, and when it feels to Palestinians like my only chance is armed.
Yeah, never mind. Fuck you, Chatters. You're wrong. No, that was my whole point. And he pretended like the last part was his, but it's okay. It'll be wrong.
Also, when, your mom and your brother and your sister are being slaughtered, guess what? That's probably going to create a lot more commitment to terrorism.
And Destiny understands that on the other side, because he's very quick to say, look, the reason Israelis want to genocide the Palestinians is because of the Second Intifada and the suicide bombings. Well, why doesn't it work the other way? Of course it does.
I also thought that exchange, though, was very illustrative of a technique that he uses that's very effective, which is it got bogged down in this question about armed combatants and dropping your weapons and whatever. It's like
international humanitarian.
How did you?
Right, and whether it was a police action or a military action.
It's a good thing. Emily is a Geneva Convention.
It takes you away from the basic facts.
Don't all these fucking losers graduate from like fucking law school and shit? Isn't like everybody in media? Aren't they? Like, what is Krystal Ball's educational background? I hate this. Wow, you really want to get into the weeds of things. These are the rules and norms by which our planet governs itself. It's pretty important to know them, especially if you're going to be a commentator on them. If you're not, you should probably just take a step back and I don't know, talk about the beef between Drake and Kendrick or something. Like, leave the conversations to people that want to spend like at least 2 minutes reading about what the fuck is going on, so that you're not like hogging the oxygen in the conversational atmosphere for this topic.
because this is what people, well, if Palestinians had their own Gandhi, if they had their own nonviolent, it could be over so quickly. And it's like, well, they tried that. And
with who? Who was their Gandhi? Excuse me? Who was their Gandhi? I would love, God, she'll never talk to me, and she's smart. That's why Krystal's she is smart, and I can tell. So is this guy, this Saagar dipshit is smart too, because they're both smart enough to never be in the same room with me on this topic, because it would be disastrous.
They had their own nonviolent, it could be over so quickly. And it's like, well, they tried that. And so you get away from these basic facts of they tried that, and thousands of them were hit with sniper bullets and intentionally maimed, and medics and journalists targeted. All of this is...
What do you think happened there? Like, what do you think? I wish I had her there. Walk me through from start to finish. So there's a peaceful protest on the other side of the wall in 2018, 2016? 2018. Everybody's got cell phones. Everybody's got video footage of everything. There's thousands and thousands of people. I think towards the end of the protest, might have been tens of thousands of people at these protests. And then the Israeli military is like, for no reason, we're just going to start shooting and sniping people and killing people because LOL. Did anybody catch any of these like unjustified crazy? Shouldn't we have video footage of like thousands of these people getting shot for absolutely no reason, nothing happening? Like... Historically, who is the closest person to a Palestinian Gandhi? Probably the Jordanian kings.
Accurate, documented by human rights organizations. It gets you away from those very uncomfortable facts and arguing about some little minor technicality that he's educated himself on and everyone's like,
oh, little minor technicalities. Oh, like law of armed conflict. Come on. Do we really give a fuck? Like, I feel like this should be your takeaway. This should be your takeaway, and you shouldn't be listening to these people, okay? Is if it's your job, okay, if this is your job is to talk about these particular things, and you're going to say that things like armed conflict laws are minor technicalities, what your opinion is not worth anything. You're worthless. Your opinion is worthless. Like, and this is shit you can read about in like 5 minutes. It's not like a super complicated, ultra nuanced, or just say like, I don't know anything about this, so fuck it. I don't know. Just like, why? Why would you try to hand wave off all this? Like, oh, well, it's a technicality.
All of this is accurate, documented by human rights organizations. It gets you away from those very uncomfortable facts and arguing about some little minor technicality that he's educated himself on and everyone's else like, I don't really know about
There's
this.
A strategic and moral question of whether it is good for either cause to kill unarmed protesters.
Right.
And then there's the legal question of whether or not they are engaged, whether or not they're allowed to kill them because Hamas count as police or Hamas count as combatants.
Maybe it's a good question to ask why they should or shouldn't be able to kill people in certain parts of armed conflict. Maybe that's a good thing to think about. But don't worry, I did it for them in this. I explained why armed conflict exists. There's two very important things it tries to balance. I think it was almost a 2-hour debate. I hope they don't cut any of it.
Who are somewhere within the vicinity, and so they're like... Right, so we kept trying to push it back to the strategic and moral and ethical questions and keep it away from these rabbit holes.
Any last thoughts, Emily?
Well,
rabbit holes.
I think to the extent that you can have a spoiler for a debate, what Krystal just mentioned about Ryan's point on peace, support for peace declining in those particular moments is the devastating, that I felt like, and that comes towards the end. I felt like that was clearly a moment where we all sort of looked around and were like, but he kind of, I don't want to say he changed the terms, but then he said, but we're talking about peace from a Western perspective. What both sides really want is justice. And that is, again, like coming to that later in the debate, we just sort of looked around and were like,
All right.
And then he dips into weird, Oriental stuff.
Okay.
God, it's so white. I love how white and privileged we are in the United States. It's in a way, it's happy and it shows progress. That like when you're white. I hate to do this. Can I find this quote? What? Give me the whole. It's this negative peace quote. quite gratified to learn, according to your telegram, that racial conditions are more peaceful in Mississippi than ever before. I would ask you to consider, however, that peace is not nearly the absence of some negative force, tension, confusion, the murdering of Emmett Till and the Reverend George Lee, but the presence of some positive force, love, justice, and goodwill. There's another quote for this. But yeah, the idea that like, peace, we just want peace. What do you, like, peace is easy. Like, the Palestinians technically have peace living under occupation, but like, obviously they don't consider that peace. People want like a just resolution to the conflict, right?
Well, so as we said already, it's a 2-hour debate, literally 2 hours to the mark. Congratulations.
It was actually hard to wrap.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been there. I understand it.
No, we were getting the messages in real time where Max like, you could probably wrap up now, and then it goes into like some whole conversation about human shields, which is another interesting moment. Human shields, okay, when the IDF uses them, based on, again, some, legalese, whatever.
What do you think to do? Let's see. We call these warning signs that you may be talking to a lazy gardener. It would be technicalities. Let's not get into the technicalities. Let's not get bogged down. Too much legalese. This is just semantics. So your argument is that the March of Return was not peaceful because they broke the IDF border no-zone area, but that was the point of the march, though. Well, thank you for admitting it, at least. To end the blockade. So the point is to protest against that policy. You're leaving them so options to meaningfully resist. Invading a country is not like a peaceful way to meaningfully resist. The reality is that, like, what you have to do is something needs to be negotiated, but that'll never happen because nobody ever tells the Palestinians they need to do that. So it won't. We'll just keep doing this until Israel blows itself up, I guess. Mr. Bonachili, why do people keep representing Ute macro versus micro game? People like this say MSM oversimplified everything in 5-minute panel shows, but their idea of journalism is stopping the magnification at a level that suits them. The infestor trauma is real. You have a lot of words in that, don't know, but thank you for the $100.
Cookies being used to build rockets was another interesting moment.
Yes, and it's also, it's not a total pile-on, and we maybe made it sound like that, but like there are some things that I agree with Destiny on, and there were some moments where we pushed Omar, and he was in good faith, willing to engage them.
I think people who watch it, even if if you share Destiny's view, if you share Omar's view, I think you're going to feel like your view was well represented, right?
Oof.
I mean,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You guys did a really effective job.
Where was this Saagar from 2 days ago saying that I was an uneducated fucking retard, that he would never waste his time talking? Oof, yikes. Okay. Damn.
Like I said, moderating it, creating that climate, I think making everybody feel like they had a chance. I also will just say,
Destiny, you will scrutinize every source that disagrees with you. UN, Amnesty, UWR, et cetera, but you will never scrutinize any source that agrees with your framework. If you're going to scrutinize, you should on both sides. You can't just accept what the UN says that agrees with you, but then say they're wrong in other parts. I don't think I've accepted anything when it comes to this conflict. I think I just read through all the source material. I just read all of it. Some things that the UN says I agree with, some things they say I don't, but it just comes down to what the underlying analysis was. So that's always how it goes. Like, we've read through these on stream before.
Having watched so many of these Israel debates at this point, one-on-one is so much better. It's than when you have the panel of freaking 4 people and everybody's trying. It's so much better to have had Omar and Destiny have it well moderated. That to me is like the best model. I think that's why you were able to get to so many interesting substantive conversations. I'm very excited for people to watch that. I'm really excited about you guys doing the Friday show because I think this is just a great preview of things to come.
This is an awesome proof of concept.
Plus Ryan's getting fashion tips from Don Lemon.
Ryan's getting fashion tips.
Just for
what
the
else
record,
could we ask
for the record,
for?
I had this last spring. I just
Yes.
wasn't wearing it in the winter.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
But Don's right. Don's right. The
Subscribe
dark suit.
to Breaking Points if you want to watch it early. It will drop tonight for our premium subscribers. It'll be publicly available tomorrow. Support us there if you want to be able to support Friday shows like this. It's a great proof of concept for what we're all about.